Hello and welcome to Aviadev Insight Africa, the podcast offering a window to the world of African aviation. I am your host, John Howell, the CEO and founder of Aviadev Africa. And today I am delighted to say I'm joined by an African airline success story. ASKY Airlines started flying back in January 2010, so it's already been 15 years, and has grown to operate a fleet of 14 737 family aircraft, serving almost 30 destinations around Africa. Joining me to discuss the airline's current focus and also its future ambitions is Marshal Date Dovene Tevi-Benissan, or Date to his friends. Date is the commercial director at the airline and is really well positioned to inform us today about what's happening, because there is a lot happening around the airline, a lot of conversations, and we thought we'd hear it from the man himself. So welcome to the podcast, Date. Can't believe it's your debut on the podcast.
Good morning, John. Happy to join you. How are you doing?
I'm really good. And it's great to see you because you've been a big supporter of Aviadev and you've been to the event many times and you were with us in Zanzibar. But I couldn't believe it when I thought we haven't had you on the podcast. This is crazy. And so I'm really excited to talk to you today. So why don't we start with the network? Because of course, this is something that inspired me to have this conversation. I was chatting with Baramji and Sean on our connectivity update. There's quite a lot going on when it comes to the network. And what I'd love for you to do as a starting point is just summarize the recent developments, because what they actually are, for those listeners who haven't been abreast of this yet, is majority additional frequencies to existing destinations rather than route development by growing the destination list. As I said, you've already got 30 or so in the network. This is all about densifying that network and increasing the frequencies. So just give us a summary. What have you done and why have you done it?
Okay, thank you very much, John. As you outline it, ASKY is hub operator. So the connectivity is the essential product we are offering to our passengers. And one of our objectives whenever we add aircraft or whenever we have the opportunity is to increase frequency, to deepen the network. And what we successfully did the last 2-3 months to increase Dakar flight to Dub daily. So now we have 2 flights a day to Dakar. In July, we increased Nairobi from 3 to 4 weekly, giving more flexibility and more connectivity to our passengers. And in the same time, you have increased Douala and Jamina flights also to 4 weekly instead of 3. And this has increased both Douala and Jamina to 8 flights from Lomé. So more than daily flights. And as we are growing, we will continue adding more frequencies. Because of the capacity, we try always to balance the capacity we are adding from the west to the Central Africa also to avoid imbalance. And the network is going to grow, to increase with Nouakchott. We are opening next Saturday, August 2nd, 3 times per week. And this has given us even the opportunity to make Conakry flight non-stop from Lomé. So out of the daily flight to Conakry, 3 are now non-stop and extended to Nouakchott 3 times per week. So overall, we are not just adding frequencies, but we also try to improve the elapsed time for the passengers whenever they need to travel to one or other destinations. And probably the next step after we develop Nouakchott market could be to have it as standalone and extension beyond another point to develop. We are happy that we are adding more frequencies, more possibility for passengers to travel, and this is where we are now.
Yeah, it's such a great strategy to obviously, and it reduces the risk when you add this as a tag on from Conakry. So you're able to stimulate that market, but you're already serving another point in that region. And the idea, I assume, is that builds that demand, and hopefully you're then comfortable enough to decouple that and say, we're now ready to fly to Nouakchott directly. That's been the strategy, right? Is build it slowly, build the demand, create the awareness, and then when the numbers are there, you can decouple it and go direct.
Yes, of course. This is what we have been doing since 2010. I remember even at the beginning, we had some flight that with, I think, 5 landing while coming back to Lomé. But today we doesn't have any more 5 landing flights. We have now developed many markets which were considered as no market because people were having to travel by road to nearby city, near countries to take flights. Now we have managed to establish a possibility for them to fly directly from their city without necessarily going to the neighbor countries. So this is how we have grown our network, and we will continue because costs are very high in our region. And when we are not really sure of the size of the market, even with the best study, we need to be very vigilant. This is how we are proceeding for NOCTOT to start the market. And as it grows, we will make it non-stop, probably. And at the same time, Bamako is going to have a full dedicated 738 3 times per week. So this is also a kind of improvement in terms of capacity. We are availing to Bamako market for more connectivity to Central Africa and also other destinations in West Africa.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that if I was to explain when people say, oh, ASKY, what makes them successful, I'd love to hear this from you. But for me, it's about slow and steady. It's a case of we're not getting ahead of ourselves. We want to establish and then build those markets and then establish new markets. And it's a kind of cascading effect rather than jumping straight ahead. And we'll talk about that shortly. But would that be fair to say slow and steady? 15 years to get to where you've got to is already amazing, but it's really been about focusing on that market. And we will talk about some of the regional stuff. Is that a fair characterization?
Yes, because what is also making ASKA successful is to have a sustainable business. It is not just to fly, carry passengers, just because we have to carry passengers, as we are not a flag carrier like other competitors in the region. So we careful assess all the possibilities, and we also listen to the markets. What does the market need, and what we can put in place to satisfy their need. That is really important. So it is not only about the network, but also about the service overall, punctuality, customer service, other products, the web check-in, a lot of things that the market needs are always put in the bucket. So this is how we do business. And we invest in bringing newer aircraft, new generation aircraft, as you outline it. We have a fleet of 14 aircraft, out of which 5 MAX 8. And even in terms of fleet, we grow progressively from Q400 to 7700. Then we added the 800, and then we started withdrawing the Q400. Then 737 700 has been also removed completely last year. This is what we call the kind of grow together with the market, together with the people, and serving a noble ambitions.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will come to the fleet. So I know a lot of our listeners are really interested, and we'll come to what's happening there. And you've already explained the evolution of that. But where I wanted to go to next, because you and I were chatting about, obviously, the challenges when it comes to connectivity, and the fact that before, in many ways, ASKY was serving these routes, there was either no flight or it'd be 1 or 2 a week. And of course, if you miss a flight, you could wait days or you'd have to drive or whatever it may be. What I'm really interested in is in terms of your next steps when it comes to African connectivity. I remember very well when you launched Nairobi, and it's heartening to hear you're going to increase the frequencies there. And of course, you've also got presence in Southern Africa as well. But I'd really like to explore that more. You're strong already in West and Central Africa. Let's talk about East and Southern. Where is there specifically some opportunities for growth? And did you have any particularly good conversations at AviaDev last month that maybe there are some opportunities in that market?
Yes, I had a nice conversation with airport companies that were there in Angola, in Zimbabwe, even from Cape Town, from Zambia, as well from Tanzania airport company as well. But for us, the study is taking several steps, including even the integration factors. As you said, in West and Central Africa, we are well established, but we are really vigilant in East and Southern Africa because it looks like whenever their traffic is not really connected to West and Central Africa, probably because of the language barrier, but there is lack of integration, economic integration, and they are having traffic from West and Central Africa mainly when there is a meeting, business meeting or something. It is not permanent traffic flow. They are more connected to Europe, to London, to Germany and others, than to the other countries in West Africa. And this is why we are praising the ZILCAF, the Free Trade of Project of African Union, to have a kind of emulation within the African countries to trade more and to build more relationship. But still, we are evaluating the possibility, the market opportunity we can have, and we will see which will be the next one. We are receiving good offers in terms of support to start from different airports, and we are assessing everything because at the end of the day, we need to cover the cost of the investment. And the next for us right now is to deepen more the stations that are not daily basis, like Nairobi, to add additional frequencies, and also to Joburg, and to continue building connectivity to East and Southern Africa through these places. For example, in Joburg, to have more interland agreement to access market like Harare, Lusaka, others. We are connecting with some of the airlines, but to improve that one. So it will be a way for us also to access the Southern Africa and East Africa market without flying directly. We have open discussion last time also with Air Tanzania for possibility of connecting from Nairobi to Dar es Salaam and Zanzibar others. So that will be a great possibility and will help us to have a kind of awareness even before jumping ourselves into the market.
Yeah, I'm loving these information I'm hearing about the partnerships and the conversations. And this is something that I've been really keen to push through the Aviadev platform. Is it's not just about airlines and airports, it's actually airlines talking to airlines and saying we have very much complementary network. So let's work. You can help me get some beyond traffic. I can get you some beyond traffic. Let's partner up and let's serve those markets and increase our footprint. So I think that's a really fascinating sort of insight. Now, you talked about this at the beginning. You're not a flag carrier. And I said that ASKY is, of course, a success story. And in those 15 years since inception, you've performed profitably. You've been able to operate. And you touched on this as well in terms of just how high the costs are. There was a recent report, which of course you've read like me, from AFRA, all about the high costs of operation and the high taxes and charges in the region. So before we get into the fleet, I'd just love for you to give your thoughts on that, simply because it's something I've discussed in the past with the airlines in your region. And it is quite debilitating when you see some of the numbers and some of the airlines just having to operate in these incredibly high cost environments. Are you getting through? Are you getting through to the regulators and to the taxation guys, or do you feel that it's going the other way?
Yes, the costs are very high on passengers as well on airline. And this is a challenge for us. Last time I was in Gabon, and I'm happy to see that the civil aviation is making a study to evaluate the impact of the tax and how they can maybe review the existing tax that are imposed on passengers and how it can stimulate the traffic. And we found that when we take, for example, flight from Libreville to Sao Tome, which is less than 1 hour flight, the tax is almost 65% of the ticket price. Because sometimes countries just consider what they are collecting from their side, but the other country also, when you are returning, is collecting something. So when you add both, it makes the price very expensive for the passengers, and also in the reverse way, high to the airline because you are spending a lot to operate, but you don't have the market size to recover the cost of operating. And this is a very serious challenge. And for other markets we explore, the tax, the average was between 40 and 55% of the tickets, only the tax. And this is one of the discussions we are having also with ECOWAS Commission to encourage state to review, to reduce the level of the tax on passengers so as to stimulate the traffic and help airlines to recover the cost of operating. And even from the airline side, the costs are very high because all the service providers in West and Central Africa are having monopoly. So when you have monopoly, you apply whichever price you have. Airline doesn't have the choice. And their choice, or even sometimes 3 times expensive, than when you go to Nairobi or to Southern Africa. So it is a challenge for us in West and Central Africa to make affordable plans for passengers. So either you have to charge a high price to cover the high cost of operating, and we are trying our best to also explain to the passengers, because every time there is an inflation of 1 or 2%, the airline receive more than 20%, because each service provider is adding his 1 or 2% to your cost. So catering, handling, navigation, everybody, transportation of passengers from the terminal, airport company. So even if they just want to increase salary of their staff, they need to get money from somewhere and they put it on the airline. So if they cannot put it on
But
the
the
ticket,
interesting you say there is you say they put it on the airline, but I think what you've said really is you're referring to it as it's a passenger. The passenger ultimately has got to pay it
yes,
because you're running a business, and if your fixed costs go up, you have to pass those costs on to be able to operate with a slither of profit. And it is that kind of awareness raising within the community, the traveling community, of just have a look at your ticket. It's itemized. Look how much the airline actually gets, and look at all of these, not just the taxation, but the charges, like you say as well. And until we get scale, we're not going to be able to have competition and reduce these monopolies, but we're never going to get scale if we keep taxes and charges high. So we're in this weird conversation where I do agree with you that you need to go to the ECOWAS of this world and the AFCACs and the guys that are able to lobby on your behalf and sit down and say, you're actually hurting yourself here by just continuing to tax and to charge these exorbitant rates. But I would recommend anybody who hasn't read it yet has a look at the recent AFA report. I'll put a link in the show notes so that you can all have a read, but some of it is eye-watering. And I think that the final thing I would say on that is that people say to me, what about low-cost travel in Africa? And I say, how do you have low-cost travel in a high-cost environment? It's that simple. If the costs are high, you can't have low-cost travel. And I guess you'd
you
agree with
can't.
that, right?
Yes, because I can remember in West Africa, there was Fly 540 and Fly Gambia also they tried, but they didn't succeed because of also the penetration of the digital payment solutions. There are several restrictions. There are a lot of people who are not keen to buy directly online with their credit card, a lot of things. And the distribution cost in our region is very high. When you compare even what GDS are charging per region, the highest are in West and Central Africa. They are charging sometimes 3 times what they are charging for the same segment that is booked in USA or in Europe. So for airlines to do low-cost operation in West and Central Africa, I wish them success, but it is high risk of losing money.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why it all comes down to this strategy of being slow, being steady, not extending yourself, densifying the network and working that way. So that's where I want to come to next, is to talk about something that has been on the table and has been asked, I think, to everybody at ASKY over the years, which is, hey, when are you going long haul? What's the story there? So I want to ask you, what's the latest on that? And of course, in many ways, because of the partnership with Ethiopian, there's such great connectivity to the long haul destinations anyway that ASKY is benefiting and is able to provide that connectivity without using its own metal. But is it still on the table looking at getting some wide body capacity in?
Yes, our partnership with Ethiopian Airlines doesn't prevent ASKY for doing long haul operations. It is two entities. We are partner, we are collaborating, but we also compete in some market right now.
Yeah.
It is not for us an item that is no-go item for ASKY. What we always do is we study carefully because we are conscious that the costs are very high. When you operate a long-haul flight, you need a kind of market you can capture to make it workable. If it doesn't work, it is better not to throw out the money out of the window. We remain grateful for Ethiopian partnership because we are carrying some of the long-haul passengers we connect with exchange in Lome, and this has helped us also to expand. But most critically, the limiting factors today for the long haul, the cost of acquisition of the aircraft. the crew, the maintenance, the spare parts, which are the basic one. It is really scary because regardless of the aircraft type to the narrow body or wide body, it is really expensive.
Mm.
Really expensive because of the scarcity of the aircraft availability and spare part in the market. And the operational costs are not also that low. So we consider not only the aircraft type for a long haul operation, but we consider also the market opportunity, how kind of which percentage of the market we are going to grab, because other operators are already in the market, like Air France, Brussels, Turkish, Ethiopian, Rwanda, and others, they are already in the market. Which part of the market we are going to carry, at which price, and is it enough to cover the cost of operating, especially when we operate in an environment with unfair competitor, let me call it that way. It is not easy because some airlines, as I said before, operating mostly for the flag of the country. And whichever they are losing, they know that the government will be there to support them, to fund them, which is not the case of ASKY. We still have it in the pipe. We are studying it, taking into consideration all the parameters that will make a route successful. The capacity of the airport, the slots, the right time, the high frequency, the investment in terms of crew and other aspects as well. So it is still in the pipe, but when is the next step?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, you're in control. You're deciding when the time is right. And I think your point of we could talk all day about fair competition and we're not naming names, but it's such an interesting industry to work in because you have private sector where it can afford to make a loss, like you say, and be bailed out by its parent, by its government, and other airlines like ASKY that have to operate based on a balance sheet and based on revenue and based on very careful cost management. And it is tricky because one does upset the market equilibrium, just like we see in, to put an analogy, like in football, right? You have football teams that are owned by states and they can throw money at it without actually only having to spend what comes in. If people want to get a bit of an idea as to how it all works, that's probably a fair analogy. I think as well, what I wanted to talk to you about is definitely the fleet. And that was why that was a nice intro. You've worked hard. You explained to us about the evolution of the fleet. And where you are now, you've got 737-800 family, but you've got 5 MAX and 9 737-800s. So, you're in this position of saying, hey, we're trying to standardize the fleet. And then suddenly you bring in a wide body, you've got a new model to operate, potentially a new operator, new OEM, whatever it may be. And it increases the complexity. And actually, ASKY's strategy over these years has been to try and standardize the fleet towards the 737-800 and now the MAX. How easy has that transition been? And it's an amazing thing to have the MAX flying out there, and you've got 5 of them too. And is that the idea right now? Is it let's try and get to an all MAX operation? Because that must be tricky too, to be able to source enough MAXes to support your growth and to finance it.
Yes, of course, it is an investment we are doing. The MAX are more expensive than the NG aircraft, but we always try to balance the end of month cost, because in terms of the saving for the fuel and others, it has a kind of compensation with the NG. So we are investing right now in establishing a flight simulator for MAX in Lomé. The project has started. We are grateful to get a land and everything. So under the supervision of the civil aviation, the project is going good. And this will help us to support the transition and especially the training, refresher, and other upgrade of our pilots to MAX. And as you said, having fluid commonality is a key factor because it helps you to have a kind of standard procedures for the same aircraft type, and gradually we will add additional or different type, which are the wide body, of course, because some of the routes beyond a certain point will impose you a penalty of payload if you want to fly further. So we have to include that one. So we are making the transition right now to have a kind of control on the training, on the maintenance, because of the spare part also which are similar when it is the same family of aircraft. So it will help us to have more flexibility And this is what we are doing right now. It is a huge investment, of course, but we are happy to do it. As for our passengers, we want them to feel comfortable when they are traveling, to have less noise, and also to contribute in a kind of manner to protect the environment. So we have all these consideration, and we are happy to do the investment for them.
Yeah, great. And just out of interest, like where are you doing the training for the pilots right now, and where do you do the maintenance? I'm assuming some of this is done in Ethiopia. Where are you training the pilots?
We are using mainly the Ethiopian Aviation Academy for the training, and if the slot are not available, we use the one of Kenya Airways in Nairobi. So these are the two training center we are using. And for us, having a simulator and a training center in Lomé is not only for ASKY. It is also to serve other regional airlines that are in the region operating the same type of aircraft. Instead of flying too far, they can have easy access to the simulator and have their pilot trained as well, and which will bring down a little bit the cost of operating for all of us. And for the maintenance, we are doing the line and A-check maintenance here in Lome because we have a team that is working on it. Only the C-check are performed at Ethiopian MRO. But in the 2-3 years that are coming, we are trying now to have our own maintenance center that is under evaluation project. It is a huge cost, and we are grateful for all the people that are supporting us to have it established, which will serve not only ASKY, but similar to the flight simulator, will serve also the other airline operating Boeing aircraft in the region.
Yeah, and there is a lot, especially in Nigeria. There's a lot of Boeing aircraft there. I think that's absolutely fascinating, and it's great for West Africa, as you said. That was what I was going to say. Is this isn't just about ASKY, this is for the region. And what are the things that a lot of people maybe are aware, aren't aware of, which can be a limiting factor for the airline's growth, is of course the airport, the hub airport, and the airport infrastructure there in Lomé. Because of course, Lomé in Togo is not a huge country in its own right, and it's also not a huge out destination or source market, which is why you've become the hub carrier using Lomé as that hub to get people from point to point. So, how big a challenge is the infrastructure at the airport in terms of your growth, and is it a limiting factor, and what is being done and what can be done at the moment?
The airport plays a very crucial role in the development of an airline. Unfortunately, airlines sometimes grow faster than the airports. And in 2010, we are operating in a much smaller module than what we have right now. And in 2014, we were happy to join the new airport we have. But we realized that we grew faster than the plan. And in terms of traffic, we are already at the limit. We even went above. Some of the days, I think we were able to manage more than 3,000 passengers a day, which was amazing in Lome Airport, and which showed that we are really at the limit of the airport. And we had several discussions with the airport authorities, and now we have received 2 additional parking for the aircraft last week, which is something we really appreciate because the fleet is growing, but we needed more space to park the aircraft for the operations. And other work that are ongoing is to extend the current terminal capacity. Work is already in progress, so we are pressing the airport to achieve it as soon as possible so that we have more space for passengers to sit and more boarding gates, as well more area to screen passengers because the current area is congested. So we are going to have at least 2 or 3 areas where connecting passengers can be screened fast and have access to all duty-free and all amenities of the airport. And there is also another project having a kind of second terminal fully dedicated. That will take a little bit long, but we are happy to see that the airport feel concerned about the expansion of the airline and now is investing to have the airport facilities upgraded. So this is one of the challenge we are facing, but together we are going to overcome it.
Yeah, I haven't had chance to actually visit the airport, but where it is, it's got the ability to expand, has it? There is space around it to expand, or is this going to have to be outside. I'm not actually aware where it is in relation to the city and what's around it.
So the invitation is open. You can come every
Good.
time you want.
I was fishing for that. Thanks, Tate.
It will be a pleasure welcoming you in Togo. Yes, currently there are some possibility of expansion. So this is the choice that has been made. But in the long run, definitely we will need to have another space completely with more possibility of extending. So I cannot say in 5 or 6 years, but at a certain point, we need to build another airport completely in an area where we can extend it as we want, like a kind of chewing gum, which will be very extensive airport and more convenient in terms of also amenities, technology, and a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good problem to have, but it also begs the next question, which is my last question, which is talking about if ASKY outgrows the infrastructure, would you consider a second hub? Because of course it's ASKY, it's not, as you said, a national carrier. It's for Africa, it's for the region, it's for the whole of connectivity in Africa. Would there be the opportunity to say, hey, look, we've got Lomé, and if we can't get the capacity we need, we'd consider a second hub? Is that on the agenda?
Second hub or second bank, all of them are on the table. Second bank, but everything depends on the size of, because we have also just nearby, we have the Abidjan hub, we have a kind of mini hub in Ouagadougou, in Nigeria. So the distance from our hub to all the other countries is very 1 hour flight or 1 hour 30 maximum. And if I consider Accra or Cotonou, it is less than 30-minute flight. So we receive proposition from our neighbor countries to think about this, but it requires also a kind of investment, having a set of operation base outside, which we are evaluating. And we are also thinking about a possible second bank in Lomé. But this has also a cost of development because this will add capacity to the existing route. And we are having some issues, to be honest, which is the protectionism of the states. For example, if I consider the North route we are opening, the flight is going via Conakry, but we are unable to secure the traffic right to pick passengers from Conakry to North back. So if someone is in Conakry, he wants to go to North, he need to take another flight in the morning to come to Lomé, then goes back via his Conakry origin station without getting off, then before going to Nouakchott. And someone leaving Nouakchott who wants to go to Conakry will come through Conakry first, but will not be allowed to disembark, to come to Lomé, then to go back to Conakry. So this is some challenge we are having. And even the cost of operating, we talk about it, which are also a kind of factor we are considering before jumping into maybe a second bank or additional hub, a sub-region in the region. And it is really important for us to factor all these items before making a decision. It is a kind of committee that usually work on it to make sure that we are making the right decision, because it is private money we are spending for our operations, and we need to generate as much as we are spending to make the business sustainable. So this is the current status.
Yeah, what a fascinating case study of kind of fifth freedom and what could be done, and that experience of that individual who's thinking, what is going on here? That's not serving the passenger, it's not serving the environment, it's not serving the airline, it's not serving anybody. But like you say, it comes from a sort of protectionist policy. And this is where the work needs to continue in terms of getting those fifth freedoms. And this is where AFCAC is lobbying. And of course, if you have a state that is signed up for the YD and for SATAM, it needs to implement this, and it needs to get out of the way and allow you to do what you do best, which is connect these countries, but also operate through a fifth freedom perspective as well, which I just think, what an amazing case study. I think we're coming to the end of the interview. That it was absolutely awesome to talk everything network and fleet and all the rest of it. Thank you for being such a big supporter of Aviadev and coming with us into Zanzibar. Hopefully you are excited about Botswana next year.
Yes, I'm very excited, and I think as soon as I get the invitation, I will start processing the visa immediately. So
Amazing, amazing. We'll be helping with the visas. And for everybody listening that is waiting, we're working on rebranding everything for Botswana, working with the team, getting all the logistics in place. And we're going to have a little bit of time off. It will be September that we'll go to market with a new theme, and you will be getting your invitation in September, Date, and we can host you in amazing Botswana. Again, completely different experience to Zanzibar, but please, as we found, I think about 65% of our delegates stayed on. They either came early or stayed later in Zanzibar. And you were saying you had the opportunity to do that as well. So please do that again in Botswana. There's some amazing things to see and do from a wildlife perspective, a cultural perspective, and it's just such a beautiful country. So yeah, I will see you in person very soon, and we'll welcome you to Aviadev next June. But until then, thank you for joining us, and keep up the great work with the airline.
thank you very much, John, for inviting me for the podcast. So I'm really happy. So it's as you want at any time.
Amazing. I'll see you there. Okay. À bientôt.
Okay. Okay, thank you. À bientôt. Bye bye.
Merci beaucoup and au revoir.
Au
Okay. Bye
revoir.
bye.
Bye bye.